The rescuers emerge from the cave mouth to thunderous applause and the flash of 1,000 cameras. The relief is enormous. They carried the worries of the world when they carried the boys through the cave, and somehow they succeeded. Major Charles Hodges has avoided interacting with the boys' families, but now they have to ask to speak with him. They bow to him and give him warm and tearful thanks. The Air Force commander, who has insisted on keeping emotion at bay, finally lets up on his number one rule. He's not the only one. Finally, soaking wet, caked in mud, with blistered feet and sliced up hands, the rescuers, who have kept a laser focus on their mission, allows themselves to smile and hug each other. It's over. It's finally over. As they join in the cheers and high fives, the strange reality of the moment starts to sink in. Somehow, they have defied the terrible odds. This rescue was impossible, and they did it anyway. They got them out alive, all 13. Chapter 31, It Should Not Have Worked. When the boys wake up in the hospital, groggy and weak, they see their parents standing behind a window waving tearfully. The doctors have chosen to keep the boys isolated to protect their immune systems. At the sight of their families, the boys cry. They are indescribably relieved and happy. Their parents feel the same. Finally, parents get to see the sons they had come so close to losing forever. Soon they get to cross the barrier and put their arms around their children, cradle their faces, and cry all over again. Their sons are so much thinner than the last time they held them, but incredibly all 13 wild boars are in good health. This is despite the many knocks to the head and dips in body temperature they experienced during their extraction. Coach X's core temperature right after his rescue was measured at 84 degrees Fahrenheit, a full 11 degrees Fahrenheit below the threshold for hypothermia. Thigh woke up from his sedation with a fever, and Knight and several others have had to take antibiotics for chest infections, but that's about it. None of the boys remember anything about the rescue. After a few days, the boys record video messages thanking everyone who helped with the rescue or prayed for their return. They smile behind their paper face masks as they talk about the first non-hospital foods they'll eat when they get home: crispy pork, rice, Japanese sushi. Abdul puts in a request for Kentucky Fried Chicken. 4 of the boys passed their birthdays inside the cave: Knight, Nick, Note, and Dom. There were no celebrations at the time, and their families intend to make up for it. While they are still resting up in the hospital, the doctors wheel in a television so they can watch the final match of the World Cup. The boys' favorite team, England, has sadly been knocked out, so they cheer for France instead. Little Mark shouts the loudest of everyone, except for the doctors. This is the World Cup, after all. After a week of recuperation, the kids are finally given the okay to go home. They bid a tearful and grateful goodbye to the doctors and nurses who took such good care of them. The hospital staff gives them some advice. Go back to your normal life as much as you can. Be with people who love you and who will make you feel safe. The boys go home with their families to sleep in their own beds. Coach Eck returns to the place in Mae Sai he calls home, the temple, Wat Doi Wow. The rest of the team will soon join him. No one told the wild boars much about the rescue until they were safely recovering in the hospital. Gently, doctors broke the news to them about Saman Gunan's death. Everyone cried. All the boys felt a heavy weight of sadness. They thought about the Navy SEALs and Dr. Pak, who had cared for them in Chamber 9 and who had come to feel like family. Saman had sacrificed his own life to save theirs. He was also family, though they would never meet him. The team agrees that they want to honor Saman's memory. They want to do something to show their deep gratitude for everyone who worked so hard to get them out of Tam Luang. They decide that all the Buddhist boys will become novice monks at Wat Doi Wow. This temple is a familiar place for them where they go every day after school to play and hang out and eat leftover food that the monks don't finish. The boys are willing to serve out a full term of 3 months, but the senior monk wants them to return to school and their normal lives. It is decided that the boys will be monks for 9 days, the same number of nights they were trapped inside Chamber 9 before they were found. With Coach Eck, the boys go through the ordination ceremony. Their heads are shaved and washed, and they are blessed. They dress in the saffron-colored robes and probably have to help one another into them and take the novice monk's oath. Now they get a deep teaching of the prayer and meditation that kept up their will to survive inside the cave. These practices will strengthen the boys from the inside out, building a solid foundation that will keep them steady after they leave the temple. On August 6th, the boys return to school and arrive to a joyous welcome from their classmates. It is so good to be back. Their friends have been waiting eagerly for this day. Now they'll get to joke with their buddies again, and things will start to feel like normal. The Wild Boars classmates all promise to help the boys catch up on their studies and tutor them in the lessons they missed. Plans are hatched to go out to eat as soon as possible. On August 8th, Coach Eck and the 3 boys who were stateless are all granted Thai citizenship. They can now travel outside the country, study, and work without fear of punishment. There are still up to 3.5 million stateless people living in the shadows in Thailand, including hundreds of thousands of refugees, many of whom are children. The rescue of the wild boars has drawn more attention to this problem and has increased calls by activists to address it. There is hope that the wild boars rescue and political changes in Thailand will lead to reforms that will bring stateless people in Thailand out of the shadows and into the light. Now that the wild boars are home, their lives are both back to normal and forever changed. The boys who once imagined having to bike home alone after getting out of the cave have become international celebrities. Strangers stop them on the street to take photos with them. They have been invited by governments to take part in ceremonies and official visits all over the world. They have been given a closet's worth of soccer jerseys. They have changed on the inside too. Their parents say their sons are more patient and calm. They seem more grown up and mature, and they show gratitude for small things. The boys themselves say they learned a lot from their rescue. For sure, they are never going anywhere without telling their parents first. But more than that, the experience seems to have broadened their visions for their future. They'd all love to be professional soccer players when they grow up, of course, but now some of the boys imagine becoming Navy SEALs, just like Saman Gunan and the brave men who stayed with them in the darkness. They want to finish school and get good jobs so they can help support their families. In an interview with ABC News, Adul shares insights about the rescue that show a wisdom far beyond his years. I want to thank everyone. You loved us, and we also love you all. We feel like we have a lot of parents all around the world, and I wish I could meet you and thank you from the bottom of my heart. He adds, we are still young and have a lot to learn before we can reach our goals, but we will be good kids just like everyone wishes us to be. I promise I will try my best. Author's note. On June 23, 2018, the day the 13 wild boars went missing, my airplane touched down in northern Thailand. I was there on a trip to visit my family who live in Chiang Mai, just a few hours away from Tam Luang. In fact, we talked about going up to Chiang Rai to visit some caves, but we canceled because the weather didn't look so good. Those same rainstorms that put off our family outing ended up trapping the boys in Tam Luang for 18 days. For the rest of our vacation in Thailand, I watched the story of the rescue unfold on 24/7 coverage on Thai TV. My dad had to translate because I don't speak Thai. Once the children were found, it was all anyone could talk about. The video that Rick and John shot of the boys when they emerged in Chamber 9 ran on a near constant loop on screens in airports, restaurants, and shopping malls. Even without speaking the language, I felt the sense of worry and hope thick in the air around me. I had to travel back to the United States before the boys were rescued. And like most of the world, I was glued to my phone, waiting to see if the rescuers could actually make the impossible happen. Once all 13 wild boars were safely out of the cave, I began seriously thinking about writing this book. I wanted you to learn about this incredible, impossible rescue, and I also wanted to tell you about this incredible place called Thailand. I know that other books would tell you about Rick and John and the other heroic divers who pulled the boys out of the cave, but I also wanted to tell you about the Net and I and the Get It Done crew and all the thousands of Thai people who were pivotal to saving the boys' lives. I wanted you to know more about the wild boars themselves and why these kids are both extraordinary and totally ordinary at the same time. There are so many lessons to be learned from this rescue. The lesson I wanted to share the most comes from Coach Eck and the boys who, like their rescuers, defied impossible odds. They taught me that impossible exists only in your mind. You are capable of so much more than you can imagine. In early October 2018, I had the opportunity to meet all 13 wild boars and their families in person at a dinner hosted by the Royal Thai Consulate General in Los Angeles. The boys had been out of the cave for 3 months by then. It felt a little surreal to be waiting for their tour bus to pull up, partly because I was extremely jet-lagged, and partly because I had just returned from a research trip during which I had spent the last several weeks talking about these boys. Just days before, I had been in their hometown of Mae Sai, Thailand, talking with as many people as I could who were involved in the rescue. I met Vern Udsworth, who graciously spent hours tutoring me on everything to do with Tam Luang. I spoke with I and the Get It Done crew, Sangwat and Colonel Singahat. I went to Wat Doi Wow and met some of the boys' parents and siblings, and I spent some time speaking to Phra Kru Praut, the senior monk there. I visited the site of an enormous mural dedicated to the rescuers, and I paid my respects to a memorial statue of Saman Gunan standing tall and strong, with 13 wild boars sheltering at his feet. I made the dusty drive up to Tam Luang, though I couldn't go inside at that time because it was still full of water. Even as this book goes into its second round of edits, 7 months after the boys were lost, the cave remains flooded past the Samyang Junction. As a mother, my throat clenched tight as I walked across the parking lot, which was once the bustling mission base camp, to the small room where the wild boars' parents waited for weeks for their children. I could not imagine looking at that massive mountain of stone every day, knowing that my child was trapped inside and that I could do nothing to help him except pray and hope.